Hey, what's up, guys? Blaine Duncan here from Halloween Lives, the podcast of Michael Myers, joined by my brother, as always, Austin. What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. We were just chatting here, talking about how cool today is, and it's definitely a monumental episode for Halloween Lives, the podcast of Michael Myers, because we have Michael Myers on the set today.
We do, yeah. We announced it obviously in last week's episode. We talked about it a little bit, but Christopher Durand is going to be on the show with us today, and I'm in seventh heaven right now, and I don't even want to keep him waiting. I don't want to keep myself waiting. I don't want to keep any of the guests waiting. I think let's just go ahead and bring Christopher in. There he is. What is up, man? How you doing?
Doing well, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me on.
Hey, we so appreciate what you're doing for us right now, and this. I'll be honest with you, Christopher. So this, you hold a very special place in my heart as Michael Myers, because Halloween H2O was actually the first Halloween that I ever saw. I was probably 12, maybe 13 years old at that time, something like that. I obviously knew the Halloween franchise. I was a horror fan, but I hadn't gotten into the Halloween series yet. And I rented H2O. It was right after it came out. It was released on VHS, and I saw it. And man, you are the Michael Myers that I fell in love with. So, dude, we're so excited to have you here. And I do want to bring up. So I was doing a little bit of research on you here before we got on the show here, and man, I did not realize you have had just an absolutely amazing career. And I want to read off real quickly, because we're obviously here to talk about Halloween H2O, but you have had a hell of a career. And I'm going to just read off some of the movies, and there's a whole bunch more on top of this, but I do want to mention some of them. So Armageddon, The Crow, The Doors, Scream 2, The Lost World, Jurassic Park, The Mask, Transformers, Dark of the Moon, Resident Evil, Extinction, Talladega Nights, Pearl Harbor. I mean, the list goes on, man. You have been in some seriously big films.
Yep. It's been a good career. I've been very lucky.
That is so cool.
Got to join in a lot of good projects.
That is awesome. Do you have, outside of Halloween, what was, and maybe Halloween wasn't your favorite that you ever worked on, but what was a memorable film that you really, when you look back on your career and you go, that was one that I really, truly enjoyed working on?
Well, there was a tough one. Resident Evil was tough.
Okay.
Because we were shooting on sand dunes down in Mexico. So we were away from home, had to get up every morning at 4 and drive for an hour, shave our heads, completely clean every morning so they could do the zombie makeup.
Okay, sure.
And then we were in the direct heat all day wearing jumpsuits, lenses, prosthetics, and, it was 120 degrees out.
Man,
my boots. I had the old style high tech boots that weren't sewn on the bottom, and they delaminated.
Oh, really?
So the sole came off. It was that hot.
Wow. So you were earning your check every single day that you got up and went to work.
We had about 6 weeks of that to get that sequence done. Yeah.
Man, that is wild. So let's talk about it a little bit. How did you get into stunt work and acting? I mean, what led you down that path, and what made you go, hey, I want to be the guy who's jumping off of buildings and crashing cars and doing that whole thing?
It's kind of something that was built in with me. When I was a kid, I would take the Hot Wheel cars, the little soldiers, and I would create some scene, and then I would do it again, and then I would do it again, and I'd change it. And then I'd tweak it until I had it exactly right. What does that sound like? Sounds like making a movie, right? Keep doing takes. My degree's in archaeology.
Oh, wow. Okay.
People go, what's the connection? And it took me a while. It's storytelling. It's all about the stories. Okay. Then as I got older, I was doing martial arts. I was doing climbing. I used to just, do kind of the original version of parkour. We didn't know what it was called. We didn't have a name for it. We just did it. And I realized there was a job where I could do that. So I had a friend whose mom was in the business, and she'd kind of gotten him connected, and I got a little bit connected through him. And then you have to hustle. You got to hit the streets. You got to find the productions. The production typically hires a coordinator, and then you have to go and find the coordinator and introduce yourself. And eventually, through enough networking, you kind of get in the door.
Sure, that makes sense.
But you have to be able to pull it off. it's very much a no-nonsense business. You can't fudge your way through it. It's kind of a black and white. You can do it or you can't. And if there's something you can't do, you can't screw around. You can't say that you can.
Right.
You got to be honest. You got to be brutally honest about it. Turn down work if it's wrong for you. I've done that lots and lots of times.
Sure.
And then there's other times when, you finally get to showcase yourself, and work is the best hustling because people see what you can do.
That's awesome, man. And so what year was it that you started getting into it?
87.
87. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. So then fast forward, you go forward, basically 10 years, right? I mean, just a little bit over that. Yeah. And you find yourself, in obviously some sort of an audition or a casting for Halloween H2O. Walk us through that process. Did you know it was a Halloween film?
Yeah, no, I knew what I was going in for, but from what I understand, they looked at like 100 actors and were not satisfied with the way it was going or the angle they were approaching it from. And they said, listen, this is a physical role, and traditionally we've had someone from stunts do it, which makes sense. And Donna Keegan was the coordinator on the show, and she had doubled Jamie. So she had done, I think, True Lies and a bunch of stuff. So she was going to run the show. And I had worked with her a couple of years before, I guess. And she knew kind of what I could do. And I was a gymnast at 6'2". Right? I started when I was late, but I was a pretty good gymnast, good martial artist, good move. She went to production, said, I'm going to give you 5 guys that are all qualified. Pick one. We're not doing a cattle call. Every one of these guys is qualified. And so I just went in and met with them and sat down for a while and talked. And, it came down to me and one other guy who kind of had a bit of a spark that was concerning to them, I think. They could see he could be a little bit of a hothead. And it came down to kind of like, who do you want to hang out with for the next 3 months?
That's awesome. Well, it's interesting that you bring Donna up, because I was watching something and she was interviewed and she talked about what a professional you were and how great you were to be on set with. And she even spoke about, I didn't know about this, but that she had broken her ankle in the crash scene at the gate in H2O. Yeah.
When she went to hit the brakes, she busted her foot. Something lurched in the car and it got her. And then Jamie was sitting there with her, consoling her, discussing how cute the firemen were that came to haul her off.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. That's great.
Kind of 3 a.m,
Sure.
cold.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So you mentioned Jamie. So what was it like to work with Jamie Lee Curtis? What was she like on set? And
she was great. Like she's a real pro. Swears a lot, but never in a mean way. It's just kind of how she is.
Sure.
That's her personality. But I'll give you an example, like 2 examples. One was she was sitting in a car. I think we were doing the scene where she sees me in the. Yeah, it was exactly that. She sees me in the reflection in the store and spins around and it's Adam. So we were setting up for that stuff. And she was sitting in the car watching people do stuff, and she was very frustrated because she wanted to get out and help move equipment and get it set. But you can't.
Sure.
Because if she gets hurt, we're all down.
Right.
So you have to keep in your lane for that kind of stuff because she's much too valuable to the production to be doing that kind of stuff. Fast forward, we're doing the scene where I'm going to come out the van window, and it's up on a dirt road on top of a mountain, and we have our spot. And so you go and you kind of rake up the ground and get rid of any rocks and things that can ding you up. And she happens to walk by while we're picking up rocks, and she asked what we were doing, and we explained it. And she walked right over and started picking up rocks and tossed them aside.
Very cool.
And I think it was that night or the next that we hit our 100th reel, which is a tradition that you have champagne at lunch. And so she served everyone. She walked around at lunchtime and served everyone. So
wow. So cool. I mean, it just sounds very, very down to earth and just wants to be a part of the team.
She gave me a hard time a few times. You're trying to get into character And she'd walk up to me, and I've got the mask on. She'd get in my face and just go, "I'm going to kick your ass." It's like you're making this a lot harder than it has to be.
Right.
So
right.
you gotta kind of recover from that and get back into the mode.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. You're trying to get in your own head and get into that I'm Michael Myers sort of mentality. And yeah, you've got somebody who's basically challenging you in the mask. That's funny.
Yeah, she's goofing off right before.
That's
but
funny.
there was a very small slit for the mouth, and so I stuck my tongue out through that and kept going.
That's awesome. Well, so let's talk about the mask for a second. I know Austin. So Austin is he loves learning about the Michael Myers masks and all the different the different ways they were created and everything. We'll talk about sort of the issues that there were, but talk about the actual creation of. I'm assuming you went through the full. You got molded.
Sorry, guys.
Oh, you're good, man. You're good. I'm assuming you got, you had a mold made of your head and you went through that whole process.
Yeah, we did.
We did.
Well, that's standard kind of stuff, just to build it to you. And that's a very claustrophobic thing where you sit there and they, put this crap on you and you're breathing through a straw and the sound gets further and further away, and it morbidly sounds like you're in a coffin and someone's scratching at the coffin, and you're like, that's not good. And then you hear lunch, and you're like, that's not funny, right?
right.
And then they get you out of it. But they do a back of your head, and then they do the face as well, and then they have the two sides to marry together. That's fairly easy. That's standard stuff. We did a lighting test where they took versions of all of the old masks and lined them up. So somewhere out there this exists. To decide what we wanted to do, which aspects they wanted to keep, which to abandon because it's changed so much over the years. One of the discussions was whether or not to tuck the mask in. And to me,
really?
if the mask is untucked, I believe it's 5, where it's hanging. So I just want to grab it and rip it off and see who's underneath it. Okay, with that thought, goes the premise that it's definitely somebody under the mask, right? Mm-hmm. When you tucked it in, like we did in H2O, you blur the line.
Sure.
It could be somebody under a mask, or he could be kind of his own entity, right?
Yeah,
and,
sure.
And you're walking that line, which is freakier, because again, if it's clearly a person, I just want to go, who is it? And if it's not, I'm like, I can relate to the humanity of it, but there's something beyond that. So it ended up working. I mean, I've kind of figured out, I threw in my 2 cents for what it was worth at the time. And I think some of the decisions we made were very, very good. Now, the initial mask, they ended up not liking, of course, but they ended up not liking it 6 weeks into shooting.
Right.
And of course you have dailies, every day. So it's like, you guys, you've been looking at this for 6 weeks and now you want to change it.
Right.
So it was a huge explosion in the middle of filming.
Yeah,
so on a Friday we had Steve livid, and we shot the scene, and then we're shooting, of course, out of sequence. We're shooting the scene where I'm going through the house and I'm killing the nurse. So we had shot the exteriors of that 5 weeks before, but now we're doing me going through the hall and actually cutting her. So, and that's the scene where I grab the knife out of the holder and flip it and do that whole thing. I'll tell you that story too, if you want. Yeah. So we shot that with the K&B mask, and we shot that with the 5 mask, I believe. And he lit it dark on purpose to,
cover it
do
up.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And by Monday we had a new mask.
Wow.
And so we had to reshoot a bunch of scenes. We had to reshoot flipping the tables. We had to reshoot a bunch of other stuff too.
That's one of the biggest things as like in the fan community is what the hell happened during the shooting? Because there's several different masks, even with the there's a CGI mask in there.
Yeah, and what happened there is I believe that was the original mask. And if you look at that scene, the CG kind of floats.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what they were doing is trying to, and the technology wasn't quite there, but trying to just color it in and make it look like the Winston mask. And it kind of floated and became this really fake looking thing for a moment. But that was a scene we shot. with probably the original mask.
Okay.
Absolutely. And that was something I actually rewatched it recently to kind of prepare for this interview. And that was something that I just kind of had in the back of my head watching now, kind of thinking about you having to do all these reshoots with different masks and how that process went down. It sounds like it was pretty wild.
So here's something to consider. So with the stunt background, we try to get things done in one take, always, but you can't.
Right.
Sometimes things go wrong. Sometimes you just miss. I was doing a sequence on a film where I was a cop and I'm running after these guys and I get shot, and it's a big old legs up in the air flopper on a really hard deck. And you're like, okay, let's, suck it up and go hard. And I did the shot and the cameraman missed it.
Oh, no.
So now you got to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And what tends to happen is people get gun shy and they back off. So you've got to bring it even harder the second time. So I was used to kind of like, if it didn't work, do it again. If there's a technical thing, do it again, whatever. Just get the shot. So when we had to reshoot, I think that the crew was more deflated than I was. I was like, okay, whatever, let's just do it. Now, what happens on a lot of bigger shots is you get what are called happy accidents. So it's those little pieces of film that weren't necessarily intended, but just work. So if, like, say I'm flipping the tables and some piece of something in the air flies just right through the air, you're never going to recreate it.
Totally.
So we had some of those scenes down and had to go reshoot them. And you're like, we're losing all those happy accidents, but bring the energy and hopefully you get new ones. And so we reshot the flipping the tables. We reshot some of those scenes, stalking. The wider ones they kept, like the real far shots from the beginning, they just kept with the original mask. But it's far enough away at that point, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that was something too. I was kind of trying to watch is in the bathroom scene, the woman character, she looks through the
slot. Yeah.
Wow.
We actually shot that very, very late. So that's the Winston mask.
Okay. Cause I was trying to wonder,
Mm-hmm.
I was watching it and I was like, oh, that does look like kind of the hero that I know.
Yeah, it is. Yes. And again, we shoot everything out of sequence. So, we shot the exterior of that with the mom and the little girl going up to the door, which I'll tell you that story. And then it was very much towards the end that we shot the interior. So what happened is, in the sequence, as originally scripted, they walk up the exterior to the women's bathroom. They shake the door. It won't go. They go into the men's room. Okay. Did I say that right? I think I did that right.
Yeah, you did. Yep. Yeah.
Okay. What we did is had her go up and they shake the thing, and then they're supposed to come to the other door. They go and they shake the door and they go away. And then as they left and they're clear of the scene, you see me poke out the door.
Right.
So it's something that's not in the movie. It was just an idea that they wanted. You film a lot of stuff that you don't end up using.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what happens is she's supposed to come up and shake the door and then go to the next thing. Nobody told the little girl I was in there.
Oh no.
And she just walked up and flung the door open, and there I was. And she'd never seen it.
Sure.
She'd never seen me or the mask. And
that's awesome.
Imagine a 5-year-old opening the door on Michael Myers.
Yeah.
She went white. And they had to pull her aside and everything stopped, and I ripped the mask off. And an hour later, she's like, okay, you're not so bad.
Good.
And then when we filmed the interior stuff, she did a jump scare on me in real life, which of course you play up. And she got even.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I suppose. I mean, she's a little girl. She wasn't expecting that, obviously, but
I felt so bad. We all felt bad, but especially me, because I was the guy in the mask.
Well, that's good. It sounds like you made it right, and then she obviously got her opportunity to scare Michael.
Yeah, I made sure she got to scare me back.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool. So did you have a favorite mask, Christopher? I mean, was there one that you?
The Winston mask ended up being the correct choice. I just wish we'd have done it a lot sooner.
Right.
Totally.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and it's because it becomes such a controversy. that at some point it can detract for people enjoying the movie.
Right.
And
Yep.
you don't want that.
Yep.
So it always comes up, and it's frustrating for me. Not that I had control over, obviously.
Right.
Totally. But as like growing up, I mean, this was kind of the movie that Blaine and I watched a lot because it was kind of newer. It was kind of our age Michael Myers, and I really didn't realize the mask issue until I got older and I started studying these films a little bit more.
Yeah, the first time you watch it, you don't notice anything
Right.
unless you're a diehard.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I think it still works great the way it is. It's the people like us that love to nitpick.
Well, any show can be nitpicked after a while. That's just the nature of the business and nature of movies. But
totally.
Yeah.
I kind of got to introduce a whole generation of people to the Halloween franchise.
Yeah. How was that? I mean, I've got to imagine at that point, even though there were the 4, 5, 6 sequels, this was supposed to be the direct sequel to Halloween 2 and obviously the 1978 original.
Right.
So there's kind of a big weight to bear there. I mean, what was the process of like?
Okay. This is how I made it easy without meaning to. Okay. This is a happy accident for you. In that interview, Steve Miner and the first, I'm trying to think of his name right now, were having a little bit of a side discussion. So Steve and Mark were on the side talking about, we're not referencing anything that came before.
Right.
I had never seen anything with Halloween. When the original came out, I was too young. I wasn't allowed to see it. Had never seen any of it. Okay. When you do an audition, you get what's called sides. So it's your pages for whatever portion of the script it is. And a lot of the times there's scenes that are crossed out because it's not what you're doing. I always read everything because it's information. It might give me a clue to what's going on in the next scene, etc. So they're speaking, I just filed it away. So when I got the show, I'm like, we're not doing what came before. Okay. So I didn't look at anything. It's like, why? We're not doing that. So I never watched a single Halloween.
Wow.
I just went in and did it.
You just did your thing.
Just went in and did what I thought was right. And no news is good news, right? If no one's complaining. So I realized a couple of things. One of them being, I'm a guy in a mask, no facial expressions, no dialogue, be scary. Okay? Well, the mask itself is scary, but that only takes you so far. The physicality for certain things matches in and ramps it up. But the big lesson I learned is that you really have to have intent with what you're doing. You've really got to have an underlying energy and mean it for that to work. And I took on kind of a big cat persona, if you would. So every time we were doing the scene and I was chasing somebody, I kind of tilted my head down a little and looked at them like, like I was crouching tiger kind of thing. And I actually growled kind of gutturally to kind of focus. And then I had a singular focus. And if you've ever seen a tiger lock eyes on prey, it's frightening. You can't break that gaze. So that's what I did. And it ended up working really, really well. The sound guy actually caught what I was doing, and I guess he laced it in a very undertone kind of way, so it's in there somewhere. In terms of like the head tilt, they literally showed it to me before I did it the first time.
Wow.
Like, okay, that's his thing. Cool.
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I got it. And then we did the closet. They showed me the closet scene because we overlapped it. That's all they ever showed me.
Wow.
And I just did it. You got to find who this guy is. And he's kind of an archetype character, right? So, he's the monster. Mm-hmm. So don't complicate it. And that's why I did a Predator. It's like, this guy is simple. He's coming for you. And there's crap you can do about it. I'm not in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But I'm coming.
Right.
And so that's how
awesome.
I did it. So it's kind of like the Energizer Bunny of, serial killers, right?
Yeah.
He's just got this steady rhythm. I'm coming. And that's your nightmare. That's people have had that nightmare. I'm sure when you're running away from somebody and you can't get away.
Right.
So
right. That's interesting. Just the mentality, I guess, behind, the character itself and what you were trying to bring to it, and especially just not having seen the film, even the original film. So, I mean, it just goes to show how great of a job you actually did. Just again, making it your own. And when you went in for the casting process, did they have you walk? Did they have you do anything? I mean, it was just
we sat down
kind of deal.
Talked for a while and talked about what I'd done in the past. And, it turns, so Donna had 5 of us there, like I said. One was her ex-husband. And I'm going, okay, maybe she's angling for him because they have a kid together, whatever. Didn't know. I had no idea. Turns out I was her first choice as well.
Cool. Very cool.
So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, she pushed, saying out of these guys, I would pick Chris. And then they kind of picked me just from what I'd done in the past and just hanging out, because you got to get along. You got to, you're going to be together for 10 weeks or something.
Right. That's super cool, man. Yeah, I always kind of wondered how that worked, especially with, casting a character who doesn't talk. He doesn't do much. I mean, he obviously has a huge role in the series, but I mean, he's very just methodical and robotic in some senses, right? I mean, he's just there. So I was curious how they did that with the casting, but that's really interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, the initial thing was stature, and then it becomes like physicality. What can you do?
Right.
And then it just kind of came down to, do we think this guy can pull it off? Yeah. Who do you want to hang out with? Let's go make a movie.
That's awesome.
It was good. It was fun.
Now, when you were making H2O, I there's some stories out there, and I've seen some interviews. Was it true that as H2O was being made, that there were already plans that there was going to be another film after that? And I guess my follow-up question to that is was that you in the paramedic jumpsuit that you see in Halloween Resurrection then, or was that filmed later on?
That was, things were filmed in Canada for Resurrection. No, I knew from day one what the device was. And the deal was that initially Jamie didn't want to come back at all. And then she kind of warmed up to the idea, but then she went, but we need to finish it. So this is the happy accident of when they were saying don't reference what came between. They were talking 4, 5, and 6. They weren't talking 1 and 2. That was the happy accident of me not, because I would have watched 1 and 2 had I known.
Sure.
Right.
But I didn't, which it worked out better. I never got in my head about it. I never worried about it because I was like, whatever, just let's go do what we think is right. But the device to carry on was the producers weren't going to let the franchise die. But Jamie wanted to end the trilogy. Mm-hmm. So we had to have some way to do that and then make a switch, carry on, and it's a separate storyline.
Okay.
So was their direction sort of in that last scene to be ambiguous in your actions to it could be Michael, it could be...
The directions in that last scene were reach out, that's it. It's like, but I know I'm this guy who's a paramedic, who's been taped up and trapped, and he's like, what the hell's going on? Help me. I'm Michael, who's had since knocked into him, who's like, what have I done all these years? What's up, sis? Help me, kind of thing.
Right.
And just touch me.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
Just touch me. And if you watch it, they all work.
Totally.
They do.
And I just kind of had to have that in my brain and play the levels, and it kind of shifts at the beginning where you feel a little sympathetic to like, oh, don't fucking touch him.
Right. Yeah. No, you're good, man.
Don't reach out. Don't make contact.
Right. And that scene is so powerful because you're right. However you look at it, if you watch the series and H2O is the final, that's the final movie you want to watch. You want to forget, Halloween Resurrection. That is Michael Myers still in that mask. Michael Myers gets his head taken off at the end of that movie. Correct. But if you want to continue on and you want to include Resurrection as part of that,
you can play it the other way.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And you did such a fantastic job selling that And that's such a powerful moment, obviously, in the movie, because there is some finality with it, but then you also get the original classic Halloween theme from the 1978 film, and I love that ending. I mean, it's so fantastic. Even comparing it to, and I don't know if you've seen any of the new movies, but Halloween Ends. There's a finality to that as well. But I just loved how they how they did it with H2O, taking Michael's head off, because it was just, you weren't expecting that.
No, it was a big turnaround. I mean, there's a couple turnarounds in that. There's the turnaround when she's got the kids at the gate and she goes back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because the whole tone shifts. Yeah. I mean, there's the first turnaround is when she realizes she's not hallucinating and I'm actually there. That's at the window. And then when she goes back and we have our showdown, and then that final moment. So there's like three distinctive, like massive shifts in the story.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like you said, it's a really final, and we're done.
Right.
But we took that moment together there, reaching out, and it took that moment between us and didn't rush it. So that was cool. That's probably the scene I'm the most proud of in terms of pulling off.
Right. Yeah, it's an awesome scene. It is very powerful, because, as you mentioned too, it's like, is this Michael finally coming to? Is this him going, okay?
What have I done these years? I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, help me. And then it's that final, just touch me.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Just give me that handhold.
And to really be doing that acting while wearing a mask where we can't see your facial expressions. I mean, that's what's so amazing to me about the work that you did, was you were able to sell those feelings to the audience without us even being able to see your facial expressions. So that's just so great.
And that's kind of the lesson I learned, the massive lesson I learned throughout this film, was that intent matters. You have to mean it. And if you do, I mean, it read through a mask.
Totally.
Right. I had eyes. That's all I had.
Right.
And I was just about to mention the eyes is a lot of people recognize how H2O is very distinct as far as the mask goes, because you really have a clear look at the eyes. But if you think about that last scene, I'm not sure that scene works as well as it does if you don't have those very exposed eyes looking up at Jamie or looking up at Laurie.
Oh no, it's absolutely. That's key to the whole thing. What cracks me up is what's the description in one about, the devil's eyes, the blackest eyes. California kid, blue eyes. Okay.
I mean, they even I think they use that quote at the beginning of H2O when they're doing the,
which is hilarious.
Right. Yeah, no, it's funny. It's a cool mask. I mean, obviously there were the issues with the KNB, and then you had the CGI, and the Part 6 mask was used for part of it. But it's a cool mask. I think it's very, there's not much to it, but I think that's what works for that character. Is it's just very plain.
Well, I think it needs to be very simple.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the problem with the KNB mask was it didn't have enough texture to it. So it was kind of too washed out.
Right.
And it needed to be a little bit more organic in feel. But it's very simple. Yeah, because, and this is the whole thing with Michael to me, is it all needs to be with purpose and not played up. It's very simple actions done 100%. Right? So even something like, and I referenced this earlier, the knife flip. The reason I did that. They didn't tell me to do that. Steve wanted me to pull it out this way from the handle. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, in the next scene, I've got it facing the other direction. It's not going to match. So I dragged my arm behind me and flipped it before I went around the corner so that it would match. It wasn't about anything else. It was just a very simple, roll it around and go. And it became this iconic moment.
Oh, totally. That's sort of where you realize, this is kind of, it's 20 years. This is a veteran Michael Myers coming back. And he knows what to do with a knife. He's getting information. Right.
This is his deal.
Right.
Now, and then simple things like also coming down from the ceiling.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a cool scene.
It's that was spur of the moment, I should say. We
Is
were
that right? So
trying to
tell us
decide.
about that. Yeah.
We were trying to decide where I was going to come from. Was I going to come from around the corner? Was I going to rise up behind her? And Steve saw this pipe up, it was like a sprinkler pipe or something up off the ceiling. And they're pretty high ceilings in this place. And he's like, can you come from up there? And I'm like, yeah, let me see if I can fit. So he grabbed a ladder and stuffed me between the pipe and the thing. And, 20 minutes later, it was on film.
Wow. Wow. So you're legit lowering yourself down and doing that whole, wow. That's cool. That's so cool. Did you did you get to keep anything from the set? A mask, a knife, anything like that?
At the end of the day, because of the mask change-ups, there was one that was I think there were two, because they did the one which people keep going, what's this neck extension thing? I'm like, I don't have any idea what you're talking about. But I think that was for the decapitation last scene. It was a special effects mask so they could, have extra room to play with it and then cut it out.
Sure.
But we had one mask. Okay. So I could show up in street clothes and in 5 minutes be in a shot.
Sure.
Because it was literally a turtleneck thing, the jumpsuit, the boots, and pull the mask out. And the mask they kept in a box on a form. They pulled it out. I put it on. We did the scenes. I took it off. I handed it back, and it went back in the box because they were afraid it was going to walk.
Yeah. Oh, I believe it, especially if there's only one. Yeah.
And so they guarded that sucker tight. But I have the knife.
Oh, do you? Good for you.
Yeah, which is like.
Yeah, it's a big one.
It's 19 inches.
Really?
A 19-inch chef knife. It's massive.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah. That's cool that you're able to keep it. Did you have was there a favorite kill that you had from the movie that either it was just you really liked it or it was a lot of fun filming it, anything like that?
Yeah, I think when I killed Adam and lifted him in the air, that was probably one of my favorites. But it's a tough scene because it's a great scene because it's not about killing him. Mm-hmm. It's entirely messing with her.
Right.
I stabbed him, and he's got nothing to do with me anymore. I'm looking past him at her down the hallway. Mm-hmm. It's just like, look what I can do, right?
Right.
I'm gonna mess with your head before I come and get you next, right?
That's cool.
But then when we did the drop, that was one of those thumpers where we had him hanging, and I've got the knife, and he's twitching and everything, and then my buddy's got to double him. Jump in the air as I pull the knife and go, and he's got to flat back it on, a school floor. There's no give.
Yeah.
So you want to do it once.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So I don't want to mess up my part. So he's got to do it again, which he didn't. He did it once.
Oh, it's
so
awesome.
It was great, but it was really cool because he just timed it, and then I ripped the knife and went as he went boom and just keep going. So you've got to be like on each of those. Sure. And in terms of favorite scenes, I think flipping the tables was probably the most fun to do.
Yeah, gotta be, right?
And that was kind of like a reverse wave, where instead of a wave is chasing you down to inundate you, I was just taking away hiding place after hiding place.
Right.
So it's kind of this like backwards wave rolling at her where it's like I got nowhere to go. Right. So that was a really cool feel to it. The window when we meet, that was probably one of my favorites for sure.
That's iconic scene. I mean, you want to talk about like the top 5 most iconic scenes from the entire franchise. That scene when you guys go face to face is one of them. Yeah, and it's a powerful moment, and they let us play it again. But we had some good energy going into that because the scene before we did that, I had Josh and Michelle trapped, right? And I'm swinging the knife at them. I avoided them for an hour easily before that scene. So wherever they were, I made sure I was somewhere else. Sure. When they lined up, there was an actual gate and enough distance to be safe. And the camera was right at the gate on them. And I got ready across this courtyard, and they go, "Are you set?" And I'm like, "Yeah, roll. Don't worry about me." And it's like, "Okay, you sure?" And I'm just go. And they started rolling, and I stacked myself up behind the cameraman so they couldn't see me.
And at the right moment, I was coming from distance into that gate right in their face,
Sure.
giving them that energy to like go, you know.
That's
and
awesome.
then I set myself up where I couldn't hit them with the knife, like I had a limited distance with it, so I could really swing and slash across. And they cut it out, but in one of the takes, it flicks, and it flicked blood onto Michelle's face.
Oh, really?
Right, which I
Oh,
like.
that's
Oh, you
awesome.
should have kept that. That was, you
Right,
know. But they
right.
didn't want to have to worry about matching it, I think, later.
Gotcha.
Sure.
And then we got to shoot the scene, the face to face, which was really cool. Because
awesome.
that's kind of one of those, like the inn. That's one of those multi-level scenes where I show up as like Predator, you know, in that mode, and then it's like, oh, hi, sis.
Right.
Like, what's going on? Right.
Yeah.
And then I actually did a thing where I dragged away, like, I'll be back, which we cut out, rightfully so. You always give it, but because it cuts to her fumbling for the gun, she comes back and I'm gone, which is scarier.
Right.
Because now she has no idea where I am versus seeing me go away. Right.
Yeah, that's
so
cool.
Some of those things you shoot them and then you go, the right choice is, you know,
right. Less is
cut
more.
away, come back. He's gone. Oh crap. Now what?
Yeah.
But you know, like I said, that's a pivotal thing. That's the first time she realized I'm actually back.
Right. Right.
Incredible moment in the movie. Like,
yeah,
everything shifts there.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And you've had some scares leading up to that where we know as an audience that I'm real. She doesn't.
Right.
So that's the shift of gears. Like, uh-oh, the stakes have changed. And of course, she's not just fighting for herself. She's fighting for her son, who was the same age she was when one happened.
Right.
So that's why, I mean, one of the things I like about H2O was she had problems. She wasn't like, oh, everything's good, I'm happy-go-lucky, and something happens. It's like, no, she was messed up.
Right.
Right, for that very reason.
Real.
Right. You would be messed up, and her kid's the same age that she was, and it's like, you know, she's hallucinating about it, she's taking pills, she's drinking, all those things play into that character, which makes it much more fun because it's much more raw.
That version of Laurie is actually my favorite out of any of the sort of sequels, because it's not in your face that she's dealing with that trauma. It's a little bit more reserved. She's actually like made something of her life and tried as far as she could to get away from it. Whereas in the newer movies, she's been spending her whole life kind of gearing up for this moment. I like that Michael hits her at a moment where she's not prepared. Right.
And it's kind of that, I've dealt with it, but it keeps rearing up at me, but it's not real. It's just this psychosis I've got. And we're going, no, it's real.
Yeah, right, right.
It's like he's really there.
Yeah.
But that's when you do those shift arounds that, you know, like in the window and you flip around and it's Adam and not me. And you do those little pieces. So here's a funny story. She's hallucinating. Well, she's not hallucinating, but it's when I'm walking down towards her and then you think I'm going to get there and Adam shows up.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And I'm walking down the drive. So when we did that scene, they didn't give me an end mark. Oh. So I'm walking down the thing and we're lining it up. Right. We're not even filming yet. And so I just kept coming. And, you know, I got to the spot where they wanted me to end filming and they all turned away and started talking to each other. And I kept coming. And they turned around and I was in their face and they was like,
oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's so cool.
So, you know, it works. I mean, it worked even live with that stuff. So that says a lot.
You were scaring the crew, scaring little girls.
I got punched by a couple of the crew girls. There's like, I couldn't sleep last night. It's your fault. It's like, it wasn't me. So they start having nightmares about Michael. So
I believe that. I mean, especially if you're, you know, if you're a crew member who maybe hasn't worked on a horror movie before, or you're not a big fan of horror movies. It's your job and this is what you're doing. And then all of a sudden you're being followed around by this 6'2" 6'2" dude in a white mask. And I mean, that's creepy. I mean, there's nothing, that's creepy. So no, that's awesome. You talked a little bit about, Josh Hartnett and Michelle Williams. Josh Hartnett, so Austin and I are from Minneapolis, Minnesota. So we're same area as Josh is from. What was he like to work with on set? I mean, this was obviously very relatively new and early on in his career. What was it like work with Josh?
It was new for him. I mean, newer, level for him. He was great. I mean, he was pretty low key about everything. He kind of stayed off to the side and kept to himself a little bit. They were all very, very respectful of me. I remember when I met them, they were all very deferential. Of course, both of them were like massive big names, right?
Right.
So that's kind of a funny memory. But no, he was always really very cool and very chill. I think he just tried to keep his head down and do a good job more than anything.
Yeah.
Michelle has been around a lot more, so she'd been used to kind of that limelight of stuff.
Sure.
She was very sweet and professional, but Josh was just kind of like, I'll be over here.
Right. And he was only, I think he was legitimately like 19 years old or something. He was pretty young.
Yeah.
Right?
He had done something before that where he was playing somebody's son on a TV thing. And then that came along, and then he went from there to the faculty, I think it was.
That's right.
And then right to the top, right? Just
right.
Yeah. But he's got that old school Hollywood kind of Clark Gable look and the whole thing. So.
Right. No, that's cool. I heard a story. I was watching an interview with you, and I was hoping you'd share it with us. You played a little bit of a practical joke on Mustafa during the table scene. I was hoping you could tell that for us.
So early on in the writing process, I guess somebody suggested that who had the gun? Was it Adam? I forget. Adam had the gun, I think. And when I stick him, it drops on the ground there. Mm-hmm. Okay. Somebody suggested that Michael pick up the gun. Right. And of course, Mustafa was like, no, and everyone's like, no, that's completely wrong for the character. It's like, it's just a thought. Right. So we're doing the table scene where I'm on top and you see her crawling and you pan back and forth and you pan up to me and I'm looming over her. Mustafa was there for that day, for that portion of the day. And they're like, we're going to play a joke on Mustafa. And I'm like, you mean I'm playing a joke on Mustafa? Right?
Yeah. You're the one who has to worry about getting fired here. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Lovely. Okay. So I actually took the gun and put it in my back pocket and we shot the scene. So this exists out there somewhere. They filmed it. We shot the whole thing. We went over, they pan up to me. I've got the knife. I take 2 beats. I throw the knife away. I pull the gun out and go, and there's dead freaking silence in the room. And I'm just going, I'm fired. And then Mustafa goes, oh, you got me. Oh, no. And he burst out laughing. And then we shot the thing for real.
Sure.
But for a moment, awesome. I was like, oh, crap, I'm done.
This is it. Yeah, this is going to be the last scene I do.
We played the joke, and I'm the one who's going over.
Right. That's awesome. That is so cool. Well, let me ask you this, Christopher. If they were to come knocking again and they said, hey, we need a new Michael Myers, would you do it again?
The short answer is it depends. Mm-hmm. And by that, I mean, listen, I got to do a very special installment, right? Mm-hmm. Because I got to finish the original trilogy the first time that Jamie came back with pretty much an all-star cast.
Right. So, and the story was good. Like I said, it wasn't kind of this surfacey story. It was a little deeper than that. So it would be hard to match that. Would it be fun to do? For sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I think I'd have to look at the script and want it to be right. Because, I did it right once. I wouldn't want to mess that up. Right. Yeah. Man, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you saying that, because it tells me how invested you were, obviously in that role, but the movie in general. Like you embodied Michael Myers and you gave that character everything you had. And so for you to say that tells me that again, like you said, it would have to be the right movie. It would have to be the right cast, the right setup, whatever that is. Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that, because that's very cool to hear.
Yeah, I think the story would have to be right, where it wasn't just kind of a rehash of, hey, let's bring Michael back and do another thing, and he can kill a bunch of people, and it's like, why?
Right. Yeah.
Right. So I kind of got to wrap up in a neat bundle, and and if you watch it as 1, 2, and H2O, which is intended as the third installment, it's its own series.
Right.
Totally.
Right. So I'd like to keep it that way in that sense. So barring something miraculous, I think that was my run at Michael. But
that was it. Well, it was a hell of a job, man. It was a hell of a job. I mean, seriously, it's as I was telling you earlier. I mean, you were the first Michael Myers that I ever saw, and Austin and I have talked about this on previous episodes. That I was 12, 13 years old, whatever it was, when I first saw Halloween H2O. It was the first Halloween movie I saw. So you were my.
I set a specific tone. Yeah,
you did, man, and you did a hell of a job. And we're so. We're elated that you were able to come on the show with us, and we could sit here and talk with you for probably 3 hours and ask you questions and go after it. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, and you don't have to answer this. So there's obviously Halloween 45 Years of Terror. There's the convention is coming up the end of September.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you able to say anything about that? Might we see you there? Might we not?
Oh, I'm planning on going.
Excellent.
I mean,
Awesome.
I went to, I've gone to kind of each 5-year thing. I don't go out that much to conventions, but I'm in LA. It's 40 minutes away. It's pretty easy.
Right. That's awesome. That's
good
to hear.
I should be there. And I've got something else coming up that I'm working on that I wanted to alert you guys to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there is a new film that I am a portion of that we are just in the pre-production stages of, called The Haunting of Darkenwell. We just got the IMDb page up today.
Okay, cool.
Okay. With that, it's a horror story, but there are 31 different masks for different characters within this larger world. It's not just, this is just the first of many films that are already written.
Really?
And as such, probably when we think of it, is in Pasadena, we'll probably have a little bit of literature on this. But the masks are, I think we're at now 30 that are done, sculpted and cast. And I am part of a company that will be selling those now. Autumn Night Enterprises will be selling all of those masks. And I will be playing the lead guy, which, see if I can go the right direction.
Ooh, that is awesome.
That'll be me.
Oh, okay. That is super cool. Yeah. That is awesome.
And the graphic novel for the movie is more than halfway done.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Right.
Very cool.
And should be done in a couple months. Awesome. So it's kind of this whole approach of, doing the masks and stuff that everyone can participate in, getting there for the film, the writing is done, and getting the graphic novel done.
So cool. Do you have it? Yeah. Is there a tentative release date or
it's still pre-production right now.
Yeah.
COVID pretty much screwed up everybody's timing for everything.
Right.
So we're hoping to have money released soon so we can get after it.
Super cool.
That's a little bit up in the air, to be honest. I mean, I have no idea. We'll do our best. We'll keep pushing. And in the meantime, I didn't waste my time over COVID. I've been writing. I have 3 separate horror-based franchises of my own.
Really?
Oh,
so awesome. We will hopefully be getting all of these things in the pipeline at some point.
Good for you, man. That's awesome news. And so, yeah, for any of the viewers at home, check out what Christopher has coming down the pipe, because it sounds like there is some pretty cool shit coming out. That's going to be awesome.
I hope so. There's some fun rides. My light went totally away, guys. I went from sunlight to nothing.
You're good. You're good. No, that is awesome, man. It's so awesome to hear that you're still obviously in the swing of things, that you've got these ideas, and that you're still doing it, because that's we love to see an H2O, and we'd love to see more of you in the future. So that's super cool.
yeah, there's some things that I'll play in, and some I will just direct when it comes time. But if I want to play, I guess I can play.
Yeah.
Well, we can't wait to see a Donna mask again. We'll be watching.
Yeah, well, hopefully this one gets out the gate. So it's Raycord Darkenwell is the name of the character. It's the Haunting of Darkenwell.
The Haunting of Darkenwell. Okay,
Yeah.
and you said the IMDb page just came up today?
IMDb page is just up today. I'm not even sure if that picture's on it yet. You guys might be the first. So.
This is it.
Amazing.
This is it. This breaking news here on Halloween Lives. That's super cool. We're gonna make sure that we keep our eye out for it. And Austin and I are hoping to get out to the convention in September. So if you're there, we'll definitely stop by. Yeah, absolutely, man. And we seriously, Christopher, we cannot thank you enough. This is you have no idea what this means to two Halloween nerds and get here or sit here and watch and talk to you. It's just fantastic. So thank you so much for coming on the show. We're going to definitely stay in touch and hopefully we'll see you in September.
Yeah, for sure. You guys definitely come see me.
Awesome. Thanks, Christopher. You have a good night. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Oh man. Dude. What a cool guy. I mean, like you're talking to Michael Myers, you're talking to Michael Myers.
And it's just like, it's so weird that like especially for you and I, and I mentioned it during the interview, but like we grew up with that movie sort of in like I guess like a higher regard because it was the newest movie at the time. I mean, Resurrection was like coming out, but that was kind of the one that we had on VHS at mom and dad's that we could watch, whenever. So it was really cool to and very fitting to have Christopher on the show.
Yeah, dude, I totally agree. I mean, this was Christopher Durand was the Michael Myers that we grew up with. I mean, H2O was the first Halloween that I know for sure that I saw. I'm guessing it was the first one that you saw, just being as you were younger than me, and it was probably one that you watched with me. So to sit here and talk to literally the Michael Myers that we grew up with. I'm on cloud nine and thank you, Christopher, so much. I mean, seriously, you have no idea. It means the world to us for you to take the time to do it. And yeah, man, we hope we get to see you in September.
Yeah. It sounds like he's going to be there and it'll definitely be cool to meet him in person as well. But just wild, man. When I think back to you and I as kids watching Halloween movies, it's H2O.
Right. Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think for some reason, I feel like these are memories I wish I could remember, even though my head is filled with like a bunch of useless shit. Like this is one memory I wish I could remember, but I'm pretty sure mom rented me the VHS. Like for some reason she rented it for me because I remember her coming in and giving it to me. And like I asked for it. Maybe I was sick. I don't remember.
Dude, she probably had to rent it for you because it was rated R.
I mean, that could be, but I just mean in the sense that she went and got it and brought it back to our house. Like, she would go with us and rent movies and I would pick out what movies I wanted, but I remember her bringing it and giving it to me. So that's why I'm like, well, maybe I was sick or something. And that's why, I told her, hey, can you get me the new Halloween H2O? And I have no idea. Those are things I wish I could remember, but just I'm on cloud nine right now. And
we live in a weird world, brother. It is. It is just wild, the shit that we've already been able to do. Just a few episodes in. So,
well, we've got just a little bit left on the show here, but we should mention that our subscribers have grown a ton over the last week. I mean, we've had a ton of people reach out, a ton of people follow, a ton of people subscribe. So thank you guys so much. And hopefully you're seeing, especially with this episode, being able to talk to somebody like Christopher. We want to make this show really special, really great. We want it to be something that horror fans and especially Halloween fans love. So keep providing us with that feedback because we love hearing from you guys. We love being, just being acknowledged that, hey, you're doing something really cool here. And obviously we are the only ones out there doing this on a weekly basis and bringing Halloween content out. So we appreciate the feedback and the comments and the support and the love.
Yeah. I mean, it is sort of one of those things where, with the more support, we're going to be able to get guests like Christopher Durand on the show.
Right.
It gives us some credibility to our name and it means the world just to kind of know that we're not just shouting out into the void our opinions on the Halloween franchise, and
Right.
at least a few people are listening, and that's pretty sweet. So
Right.
yeah, and speaking of some incredible fans of the Halloween series, I've been talking to this guy today. He has one of the coolest. I mean, it's just wild that like somebody could get their hands on this.
Right.
We've been doing a kind of super fan of the week the last few episodes, and this week we're bringing in the Shape NC's Halloween Ends table, and you might first go, is that a replica? No, this is the screen used. This is the cross that that Michael was crucified to at the end of Halloween Ends. And dude, this guy has it in his like horror collection room. You can see there's like blood on the seat of the bar stool that's also from the movie. There's still shit in the drawers. Like, dude, this is a grail of it. So I never thought I'd be talking about a table like this, but I mean, if you're gonna have a table from the Halloween franchise, this I gotta imagine this is the one.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna say this now. I'm not a criminal. I'm not a crook. I'm not a thief. But the Shape NC, if you ever happen to slip where your address is in front of me, I'm taking that table. It's going to be in my kitchen. I will be eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches off of that table. I say that jokingly, obviously, because it's freaking sweet. I mean, Michael Myers was killed on that table. And that's weird. I mean, that's weird to say. I mean, but as super fans ourselves, I'm sure he's the same way. Like he's sitting there eating on the table that Michael Myers was killed on.
Dude, I mean, such a like iconic scene. Probably the last time we'll ever see Michael Myers and Laurie Strode together on screen, at least both alive.
Right.
Just a incredibly powerful, scene in the entire franchise, and to have, like I said, I mean, this is the cross. This is his burial place or his death place. I mean, the only thing else you could have is the freaking metal cruncher, if you want to get any closer to the actual death of Michael Myers. But dude, it is so cool, and I've included some screenshots here, just to, I guess, prove that this is the real deal, man.
Did he say how he found it or how he got it?
So I kind of reached out. I kind of, tested the waters, and it sounds like he's keeping this one kind of close to the chest. He said just right place, right time. It ended up with him, and he's actually also got a painting that was used in the doctor's home in that movie. I forget her name.
When Michelle Dawson is killed.
Yes, yeah. When she's killed in that movie, there's a painting. I believe it's right above her, but he also has that. So he's got a couple of grails, and he showed me his Halloween collection. I mean, this is absolutely a super fan, and when we saw this on Instagram, it was kind of like, holy shit, somebody owns this. I guess you don't really think of where stuff like that ends up after filming, but
no. And I truly believe that if the universe is listening to me, this table right here is the exact reason why I will never be a millionaire, because I will blow my money on shit like this. Like, and I'm not saying that you blew your money, the Shape NC. I'm not saying you blew your money, because I'm saying if I had the money to do this and purchase this, I would myself. But my house would be just absolutely filled with movie memorabilia and autographs and anything, screen use props, anything like this, and it would be like a museum. So. Dude, that is super cool. Hopefully he posts more pictures of this in the future. But you probably you can't get a much cooler piece than that. I don't think.
No, it's definitely kind of one of those things where you have a real piece of history in the franchise that, like, there's not two of them. I mean, you're never going to have another one of them. It's not like somebody's like, well, I've got one of the tables too, so it's not really that cool. Like, right. No, there's one table. Just
Super
wild,
cool.
dude. Just super cool, and I thought that deserved a shout out. Also, follow him on Instagram, follow him on YouTube. He's a really cool guy, and hoping to also see him at Halloween 45 as well. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, that's awesome. We are obviously wrapping this episode up. This is episode number 9. Chris Durand, Michael Myers from Halloween H2O. I mean, such a super cool, badass dude. Was in a ton of movies. I mean, like I said, and hopefully I didn't offend him by not realizing how many great movies he was in. But I was like, holy shit, this guy's been in some blockbuster films. So yeah, I can't say enough good things about the guy, and he's super gracious, obviously, to take some time out of his day to chat with us. And we have more guests lined up. We've got some shows that are going to be coming out. Our next episode, we're going to focus on the timelines a little bit, the different timelines of the series. But we do have some more guests that are going to be coming on the Halloween Lives podcast. And we're excited about it. We're just gonna, like I always say, the train is just gonna keep going down the tracks, and we've got a lot of fun stuff lined up for you. So that is gonna wrap up episode number 9. Christopher Durand, thank you again for coming on the show. It was fantastic talking to him. And there's a lot more that's going to be coming your way. So for me, Blaine Duncan, and my brother, Austin Duncan, it has been a pleasure once again. Episode number 9 is in the books. We will see you next time, and thank you for watching.